The email notification chimed on my phone just as I watched the moving truck pull away from my driveway. My fingers trembled as I opened it, still reeling from being evicted from my own home by my nephew and his calculating wife. The message was from Vanessa, my nephew's spouse, sent from what she thought was a secure anonymous email account. Subject line: Operation Golden Years complete. Inside was a detailed spreadsheet showing how they plan to liquidate my commercial properties, my art collection, and my investment accounts totaling $22 million. They'd even assigned dates to each transaction, starting tomorrow. She thought I was just another technologically illiterate senior citizen who wouldn't know how to access email on a smartphone, let alone trace digital communications. But Vanessa had made one catastrophic error. She didn't know that I'd spent the last 2 months working with a digital forensics expert, or that every email, every text message, and every phone call between her and my nephew had been legally monitored under a court-approved surveillance order. My name is Margaret Castellano. I'm 68 years old, and until 6 hours ago, I was living independently in the townhouse I'd purchased in downtown Boston 30 years ago. I spent 4 decades building a commercial real estate empire, starting with a single strip mall in Quincy and expanding to 18 properties across Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I've negotiated with the toughest developers, survived 3 economic recessions, and built something substantial from nearly nothing. But I never imagined I'd need to defend my life's work from my own nephew, Derek. Derek is 39 now, works as a financial advisor at a mid-sized firm in Cambridge. He used to be such a thoughtful young man, the son my late sister Rebecca never got to see grow up fully. She died when Derek was only 16, a sudden aneurysm that took her before we could even say goodbye. I stepped in as his guardian, paid for his college education at Boston University, helped him through his CPA exams, and gave him seed money for his first apartment. We were close then. He'd call every week, visit on holidays, bring his children to my summer cottage in Cape Cod. Then, 7 years ago, he married Vanessa. She's 36, works as a pharmaceutical sales representative with designer clothes and a LinkedIn profile full of motivational quotes about success at any cost. From our first meeting at their engagement party, something felt wrong. The way she calculated the value of my jewelry while complimenting it, how she casually mentioned property assessments during family dinners, the subtle questions about my estate planning that felt more like reconnaissance than concern. My attorney, Linda Sorensen, had cautioned me 9 months ago during a routine review of my trust documents. Margaret, I'm seeing an uptick in cases where younger family members get aggressive about inheritances while their relatives are still very much alive and capable. You might want to consider additional protections. Linda and I had worked together for 25 years. She's 62, brilliant, and has guided me through every major business decision since I bought my second property in 1998. I should have taken her warning more seriously. But you don't expect family to turn predatory. You don't expect the nephew you raised after his mother died, who you walked across the stage at graduation, who named his daughter after you, to forge documents that would strip away your autonomy and steal everything you've built. What Vanessa and Derek didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything for months. What they didn't know was that their fraudulent guardianship petition wouldn't hold up against the cognitive assessments I'd voluntarily undergone with 3 independent neurologists. What they didn't know was that I'd already contacted Linda from my new smartphone, the one they didn't know I'd purchased specifically for this situation. And when Linda reviewed the evidence, when she saw Vanessa's own emails planning my financial destruction, she said something that crystallized my resolve. Margaret, they're not just going to lose everything. They're going to face criminal prosecution. And when this is over, the entire legal community will know exactly what kind of people tried to destroy you. This is my story of how family greed nearly cost me everything, how my nephew chose money over the woman who raised him, and how sometimes justice isn't just about winning. It's about ensuring that predators face consequences that prevent them from ever doing this again. My townhouse in Boston's Back Bay sits on Marlborough Street, a tree-lined stretch where brownstones sell for millions and history seeps from every brick. I bought it in 1995 for $340,000, which seemed impossible for a woman who'd started her career as a property manager making $28,000 a year. Over 3 decades, I'd renovated the 4-story building myself, learning carpentry and electrical work alongside the contractors I hired. The garden level where I kept my home office, the second floor with its original crown molding and fireplace where I'd host family dinners. The top floors I'd converted into a rental unit that generated steady income. Every detail reflected my journey from working-class roots to financial independence. My sister Rebecca had been my best friend and business partner in those early years. We'd bought our first property together, a rundown strip mall in Quincy that everyone said was a terrible investment. We proved them wrong, renovated it, attracted quality tenants, and sold it 5 years later for triple what we'd paid. Rebecca handled the creative vision while I managed the numbers. We were going to build something lasting together. Then she died, sudden and senseless, leaving Derek without his mother at such a crucial age. I didn't hesitate. I sold my condo, bought the townhouse with extra space, and Derek moved in with me. I helped him through the grief, the anger, the confusion of losing a parent so young. We became our own little family. I attended every basketball game, every parent-teacher conference, every milestone. When he graduated from BU with honors in finance, I felt the pride Rebecca would have felt. I kept building the business, one property at a time. By my 50th birthday, I owned 12 commercial properties. By 60, I'd expanded to 18, plus the cottage in Cape Cod and a diversified investment portfolio worth $22 million. I'd done it through careful planning, calculated risks, and relentless work. Every property told a story. The medical complex in Newton, where I'd negotiated with 3 different hospital systems. The retail center in Providence that I'd saved from bankruptcy and transformed into a thriving shopping destination. The office building in Cambridge that I'd purchased during the 2008 crash when everyone thought I was insane. Derek used to understand this. He'd come to property walkthroughs, ask detailed questions about cap rates and lease agreements, genuinely interested in the business that had paid for his education. His first wife, Amanda, had been a paralegal, practical, and kind. They divorced after 8 years, something about growing apart, pursuing different life goals. I'd stayed close with Amanda for a while, but Derek asked me to create distance to make his relationship with Vanessa easier. The visits started changing after Derek married Vanessa. What had been casual Sunday dinners became quarterly obligations. When they did visit, Vanessa would wander through my townhouse like an appraiser preparing for auction. She'd photograph my art collection under the guise of sharing beautiful things with friends. Once, I caught her measuring my dining room with a laser measure on her phone. "Just curious about the square footage," she'd said with that practiced smile. Derek mentioned the place was bigger than it looked from outside. Derek himself became evasive. When I'd ask about his work, he'd give vague answers. When I'd offer advice about his clients, based on my decades of experience, Vanessa would interrupt with comments about how times have changed and old strategies don't work anymore. The way she emphasized old felt deliberate, like she was building a narrative. 9 months ago, strange things started happening. Vanessa began telling people in my professional circle that I was showing signs of decline. She mentioned to my property manager, George Hendricks, that I'd been missing rent collection deadlines. Complete fabrication. George and I had worked together for 15 years without a single missed deadline. She told Dr. Sarah Chen, my physician of 20 years, that I'd gotten confused during a conversation about my medications. Never happened. Dr. Chen actually pulled me aside after an appointment to ask if everything was okay at home, which is when I first realized something coordinated was underway. Vanessa had even contacted 2 of my tenants, suggesting they might want to prepare for transition because I was considering selling due to health issues. This caused a minor panic that could have cost me thousands in lease renewals. Linda noticed before I fully understood the pattern. We were reviewing quarterly financial statements when she mentioned receiving an inquiry from an attorney she didn't recognize, asking about my capacity to manage complex business affairs. "Margaret, this feels like someone's building a case," Linda had said, her expression serious. "The inquiry cited concerns from family members about your cognitive state." I told them to pound sand, but you should be aware this is happening. I'd laughed it off initially. Derek knows I'm sharp as ever. We just reviewed his portfolio together last month. He saw firsthand that I'm managing 18 properties without breaking a sweat. Just be careful, Linda had warned. I've seen cases where family members manufacture evidence of decline to justify taking control. Document everything. Consider getting independent cognitive assessments now, while there's no dispute, so you have baseline evidence of your capabilities. I should have acted immediately, but denial is powerful. Derek was the closest thing I had to a child of my own. I'd raised him, loved him, invested everything in his success. Surely he wouldn't betray that. I was catastrophically wrong. That Wednesday morning started with an unexpected knock at 7:30 a.m. Through the security camera I'd installed last year, I saw Derek's Tesla parked outside with an unfamiliar white van behind it. The van had Beacon Hill Care Transitions painted on the side. 2 people in medical scrubs stood on my steps beside Derek and Vanessa. My stomach dropped. I knew immediately what this was, but I couldn't believe it was happening. I opened the door. "Derek, what's going on?" He couldn't meet my eyes, just stared at my shoulder. "Aunt Margaret, we need to talk about your living situation." "My living situation is fine." "What are these people doing here?" Vanessa pushed forward, all business. "Margaret, don't make this dramatic. We're here because you need more support than you're getting. We've arranged a care facility that's perfect for your needs." "I don't have any needs that require a care facility. I'm managing my properties. My health is excellent, and I'm not going anywhere." The older of the 2 medical professionals, a woman in her 50s, stepped forward. "Ms. Castellano, I'm Sandra Reeves, patient coordinator for Beacon Hill Care. Your family has provided extensive documentation showing you need assisted living services. We're here to help facilitate your transition." "Transition? I'm not transitioning anywhere. Who authorized this?" Derek finally spoke, his voice shaking. "We have guardianship paperwork, Aunt Margaret. Legal guardianship. You've been showing signs of cognitive decline for months. We have medical documentation." "Medical documentation? From whom?" "Dr. Chen hasn't found anything wrong with me." Vanessa produced a thick folder. "Dr. Raymond Westwood, a geriatric psychiatrist, evaluated your case thoroughly. He's determined you lack capacity to make decisions about your welfare and finances. We've been appointed emergency guardians by the probate court. I've never heard of Dr. Westwood. I've certainly never been evaluated by him." "The evaluation was based on extensive documentation we provided," Vanessa said smoothly. "Medical records, statements from concerned parties, evidence of declining judgment in business matters." I stared at Derek. "You're lying. All of this is lies. Why are you doing this?" Something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe shame. But Vanessa's hand squeezed his arm and his expression hardened. "This is for your own good, Aunt Margaret. The properties are too much for you. The stress is affecting your health. Uncle Tom wouldn't want you struggling like this. Tom was my late husband, dead for 12 years. Invoking his name for this betrayal was beyond comprehension. Don't you dare mention Tom. He'd be disgusted by what you're doing." The younger medical professional, a man in his 20s who looked deeply uncomfortable, said quietly, "Ma'am, we can do this easy or hard. The legal paperwork is valid. If you resist, we'll need to call police for a welfare check, and that's harder on everyone. I want to call my attorney, Linda Sorensen. She'll explain that whatever documents you have are fraudulent." Vanessa actually smiled. "Linda can't help you now, Margaret. We're your legal guardians. We make decisions on your behalf. That includes who you can contact and when." She reached for my phone, but I'd already slipped it into my cardigan pocket. "You're not taking my phone." Derek stepped between us. "Please, Aunt Margaret, just come with us. The facility is nice. You'll have your own room, good food, activities. You can relax instead of worrying about properties and tenants." "I don't want to relax. I want to live my life." "This is kidnapping, Derek. Criminal kidnapping?" "It's legal guardianship," Vanessa corrected. "Very different. Now, are you coming voluntarily, or do we need to make this official with a police escort?" My neighbors were gathering now. The Robertsons across the street, retired professors who'd lived there for decades. Julia Martinez from next door, a lawyer herself. They were watching this unfold with growing concern. Julia called out, "Margaret, are you okay? Do you want me to call someone?" "Yes," I started to say, but Vanessa cut me off. Ms. Castellano is confused. We're her legal guardians, helping her transition to appropriate care. Everything is properly documented. Julia looked skeptical but uncertain. The medical professionals, the official-looking van, the legal documents Vanessa kept waving, it all looked legitimate enough to create doubt. In the end, I made a tactical decision. I went with them, not because I accepted this nightmare, but because I needed to understand the full scope of what they'd done. I needed time to coordinate with Linda, and I needed them to believe they'd won so they'd get careless. As they drove me away from the home I'd owned for 30 years, I saw Vanessa typing on her phone, already celebrating. She'd sent that email to Derek with the subject line, "Operation Golden Years, complete," before we'd even left my neighborhood. What she didn't know was that my smartphone had been synced to a secure cloud service for weeks. Every email, every text, every digital communication they'd made was being backed up in real time to a server Linda had helped me set up. They thought I was technologically incompetent. They'd made the mistake of their lives. Beacon Hill Care was exactly as depressing as expected. Institutional beige walls, the smell of disinfectant mixed with overcooked food, and the sound of a television playing somewhere at too high volume. My room was a 10 by 12 box with a hospital bed, a small dresser, and a window overlooking the parking lot. A nurse's aide, a young woman named Claire who seemed genuinely kind, showed me around. "It's not so bad once you settle in," she said hopefully. "We have bingo on Tuesdays and a book club on Fridays. I'm a commercial real estate developer who manages an $80 million portfolio. I don't need bingo, but I smiled at Claire. Thank you. You're very kind." Once alone, I pulled out my smartphone. Derek and Vanessa had left after signing paperwork, confident they'd neutralized me. They'd confiscated my regular phone but hadn't known about the smartphone I'd purchased 2 months ago specifically for this scenario. Following Linda's advice, I dialed Linda's direct line, Sorensen Law Offices. "Linda, it's Margaret. They did it. I'm at Beacon Hill Care on Commonwealth Avenue. Margaret, my God, are you hurt? Are they holding you against your will? Physically, I'm fine. But they have guardianship paperwork, Linda. They claim a Dr. Raymond Westwood evaluated me and found me incompetent. I've never met this person," I heard Linda typing furiously. "I'm looking at court records now. There was an emergency guardianship hearing yesterday. Margaret, why wasn't I notified? You're my client. You have explicit instructions about legal representation." They must have filed in a different jurisdiction or claimed I had no attorney. Can they do that? Not legally. Not if they knew you had representation. This alone is grounds for reversal. More typing. The petition cites evidence from multiple sources. Medical statements, witness testimonies, business records allegedly showing confusion and poor judgment. Margaret, this is an orchestrated fraud. Linda, there's more. I installed security monitoring software on my computer systems 2 months ago when things started feeling wrong. Everything Derek and Vanessa accessed on my business network was logged. Every document they opened, every file they copied, everything. You have digital forensics evidence. Better, I also have their emails. Vanessa sent one today detailing their entire plan. Liquidation schedule, property sales, everything. They're planning to start transferring assets tomorrow. Silence. Then Linda's voice changed completely. "Margaret, send me everything right now. Every piece of evidence you have. I'm filing emergency motions within the hour. We're going to burn their entire scheme to the ground. Linda, Derek is my nephew. Rebecca's son. Derek made his choice when he signed fraudulent guardianship papers. We show no mercy here." Over the next 3 hours, Linda worked with military precision. She contacted Judge Helena Morrison, a probate judge known for her fierce protection of elder rights. She compiled the digital evidence I'd been collecting. She reached out to Dr. Chen and 2 other physicians who'd seen me recently, all of whom provided statements affirming my complete cognitive competence. Most importantly, She contacted Detective James Walsh from the Massachusetts Attorney General's Elder Justice Unit. This division, established after several high-profile elder abuse cases, had been looking for a significant case to demonstrate their effectiveness. I provided everything I'd collected. The emails between Vanessa and Derek discussing how to neutralize Aunt Margaret's control. The communications with Dr. Westwood, who turned out to be a disgraced psychiatrist who'd lost his license in New York and was operating under false credentials in Massachusetts. The evidence that Vanessa had paid him $12,000 to provide false documentation without ever conducting an evaluation, the logs showing that Derek had accessed my business accounts and downloaded sensitive financial documents, the recordings from my security system showing them in my townhouse 3 weeks ago, going through my files when I was supposedly visiting the Cape Cod cottage but had actually stayed in Boston after changing my plans. Most damning was Vanessa's email to Derek with the complete liquidation plan. She'd outlined every property they would sell, every investment they would liquidate, and how they would split the proceeds. She'd even included jokes about early inheritance and how I'd probably die within 2 years in the care facility anyway, so they were just accelerating the timeline. Linda called me back at 4 p.m. Margaret, Judge Morrison reviewed the preliminary evidence. She's issuing an emergency order. You'll be released by 6 p.m. tonight with a court-appointed escort. The guardianship is being suspended pending a full hearing. What about Derek and Vanessa? Detective Walsh is preparing arrest warrants. He's coordinating with the Massachusetts State Police Financial Crimes Unit. They'll be taken into custody tomorrow morning. Linda, I need you to understand something. I don't want revenge. I want justice. Margaret, in this case, they're inseparable. At 5:47 p.m., Linda walked into Beacon Hill Care with Judge Morrison's order, a representative from the AG's office, and 2 state police officers. The facility administrator, a nervous man named Mr. Peterson, read the order 3 times before accepting it was real. Ms. Castellano is being released immediately, Linda announced. Any attempt to prevent her departure will result in criminal obstruction charges. Her guardianship has been suspended, and all authority granted to Derek Castellano and Vanessa Castellano is void. Claire, the kind nurse's aide, actually looked happy for me. Mr. Peterson just looked terrified of the legal liability his facility was now facing. Linda drove me home. My townhouse looked the same from outside, but I could see lights on in my office. Someone was inside. "They're in my house," I said. Linda called Detective Walsh. "They're here now, at the property." 20 minutes later, Derek and Vanessa's perfect plan collapsed entirely. Detective Walsh arrived with 3 additional officers. They found Derek and Vanessa in my home office, surrounded by files they'd pulled from my cabinets. Derek was photographing documents with his phone. Vanessa was on her laptop, logged into my business accounts with passwords they'd somehow obtained. Derek Castellano, Vanessa Castellano, Detective Walsh announced. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, identity theft, and theft by deception," Vanessa actually tried to argue. "We have legal guardianship. We have every right to be here." "Your fraudulent guardianship was suspended 3 hours ago," Detective Walsh replied. "You were notified via your attorney of record. You're now trespassing and attempting to steal assets from Ms. Castellano. You have the right to remain silent." I watched from my front steps as they were handcuffed. Derek looked at me with desperate eyes. "Aunt Margaret, please." Vanessa said this was legal. "She said you wouldn't even know. We have debts, the house, the kids' school. We needed help. You could have asked me," I said quietly. "I would have helped you. Instead, you tried to steal everything." Vanessa, even in handcuffs, remained defiant. "You're a selfish old woman who's going to die alone. That money should be Derek's. Rebecca would have wanted him to have it." "Rebecca would have been horrified by what her son became," I replied. "And you're the one who made him into this." As police cars carried them away, Julia Martinez from next door came over. "Margaret, I'm so sorry. I should have done more this morning. It looked official, but something felt wrong." "You couldn't have known," I told her. "They were very good at making it look legitimate." What happens now? Now they face justice. Over the following weeks, the investigation revealed the true extent of Derek and Vanessa's scheme. It wasn't just opportunistic greed, it was a calculated, premeditated conspiracy that had been in planning for over a year. Dr. Raymond Westwood had been operating a fraud ring across Massachusetts, providing false competency evaluations for families looking to gain guardianship of wealthy elderly relatives. He'd completed at least 16 similar evaluations, all for cash payments, all without ever meeting the alleged patients. Derek and Vanessa had been connected to him through a disgraced attorney named Marcus Webb, who specialized in questionable guardianship cases. The investigation showed that Vanessa had been researching my assets for 18 months. She'd obtained copies of property deeds through public records, accessed my tax returns through Derek's legitimate access to some family financial documents, and even hired a private investigator to monitor my daily routine and health status. They'd manufactured evidence of my decline through elaborate methods. The supposed missed rent deadlines? Vanessa had contacted my property manager claiming to be calling on my behalf, creating confusion that she then reported as evidence of my incompetence. The claims to Dr. Chen? Vanessa had called the office pretending to be a concerned family member, planting seeds of doubt. Most chilling was discovering that Vanessa had been dosing my coffee with a mild sedative during their visits over the past 4 months. Nothing dangerous, but enough to make me slightly foggy and easier to characterize as declining. They'd even video recorded some of these visits, capturing moments when I was visibly tired or slightly confused, editing together a compilation they'd presented as evidence of progressive dementia. The liquidation plan Vanessa had emailed was detailed to an astonishing degree. They'd already lined up buyers for 3 of my properties at below-market prices, likely receiving kickbacks. They'd planned to move my investment portfolio to accounts they controlled, liquidate positions, and transfer funds to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Linda filed both criminal and civil complaints. The criminal charges included conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, forgery, identity theft, theft by deception, and illegal surveillance. The civil suits sought damages for emotional distress, defamation, attempted theft, and punitive damages to send a message. Derek's employer suspended him immediately. Vanessa's pharmaceutical company terminated her. Their home, mortgaged to the maximum and supplemented by personal loans they'd taken in anticipation of receiving my money, went into foreclosure proceedings. 8 months later, I sat in Suffolk County Superior Court for the trial. The case had attracted significant media attention as a cautionary tale about elder abuse in wealthy families. The prosecution, led by Assistant Attorney General Rachel Kim, presented overwhelming evidence. The security footage from my townhouse showing Derek and Vanessa staging evidence of my supposed decline. The emails between Vanessa and Dr. Westwood arranging the fraudulent evaluation. The financial records showing money paid to Dr. Westwood, Marcus Webb, and others in their conspiracy. The toxicology report confirming the sedatives Vanessa had been using. The complete digital trail of their plan to liquidate my assets. Most powerful was the video compilation they'd created to prove my incompetence, played side by side with the full, unedited footage showing that I'd been completely coherent throughout, with my apparent confusion created entirely through selective editing and the sedatives they'd administered. Vanessa's attorney, a public defender named Christopher Hayes who'd been assigned after their assets were frozen, tried to argue that she genuinely believed I was declining and had acted out of misguided concern. The argument collapsed when Rachel Kim played Vanessa's own emails joking about putting the old bat out to pasture and collecting early. Derek's attorney attempted to portray him as a victim of Vanessa's manipulation, a grieving nephew who'd been coerced by a domineering spouse. This narrative also failed when evidence showed Derek had initiated contact with Marcus Webb and had been actively researching guardianship fraud for over a year. When Derek took the stand, he broke down completely. "I'm sorry, Aunt Margaret. I was desperate. Our debts, Vanessa's spending, the pressure. She convinced me you wouldn't really understand what was happening, that you'd be taken care of, that it wasn't really stealing because I'd inherit it eventually anyway. I know I was wrong. I know I betrayed you. I don't expect forgiveness. I felt nothing watching him cry. This wasn't the nephew I'd raised. That person had died somewhere along the path to this courtroom. Judge Morrison presided over the sentencing hearing. She'd reviewed every piece of evidence, every testimony, every element of the conspiracy. Her reputation for harsh sentences in elder abuse cases was well known. Vanessa stood first. Judge Morrison addressed her directly. Ms. Castellano, you orchestrated a sophisticated conspiracy to defraud a woman who had shown your family nothing but kindness and generosity. You manufactured evidence, bribed medical professionals, and planned to steal $22 million through fraudulent guardianship. You showed no remorse until facing consequences. This court sentences you to 22 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole after serving 16 years. Vanessa's composure shattered. She screamed about injustice, about how I was a vindictive old woman who should have just died conveniently. The bailiffs removed her from the courtroom. Derek received 12 years after a plea agreement where he'd testified against Vanessa and the other conspirators. Judge Morrison addressed him with particular disappointment. Mr. Castellano, you betrayed the woman who raised you after your mother's death. You had opportunities at every stage to stop this conspiracy. Instead, you chose greed. Your sentence reflects not just your crimes, but the profound betrayal of family trust that makes these crimes particularly heinous. Dr. Raymond Westwood received 18 years and permanent loss of any professional licenses. Marcus Webb, the attorney who'd facilitated multiple fraudulent guardianships, received 25 years and was disbarred permanently. The trial revealed 6 other families who'd been victimized by the same conspiracy ring. My case had exposed an entire elder abuse network operating across Massachusetts and Rhode Island. After the sentencing, I stood on the courthouse steps with Linda as reporters asked questions about the case. I gave a brief statement. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice and sending a message that elder abuse will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. My case was unusual only because I had resources to fight back. Many victims don't. If this case helps even one person recognize warning signs and protect themselves, then something positive came from this nightmare. The civil suits concluded with complete restitution, though Derek and Vanessa had virtually nothing to seize. Their home sale barely covered their legal debts. The real victory was ensuring they'd never profit from their schemes. I changed my estate planning extensively. My properties would be placed in a charitable trust upon my death, managed by a board including Linda, several business colleagues, and representatives from organizations fighting elder abuse. Derek would receive nothing, not out of spite, but because trust, once destroyed so thoroughly, cannot be rebuilt. His children, now teenagers, reached out through their mother, Amanda. I established educational trusts for them, managed by independent trustees, ensuring Derek and Vanessa could never access the funds. The kids were victims of their parents' choices. I sold the townhouse eventually. Too many bad memories. Too many moments of Vanessa rifling through my things and Derek breaking my trust. I moved permanently to the Cape Cod cottage, expanded it, and found peace in the ocean views that Eleanor and I had always loved. My properties continue generating strong returns, managed by a team of professionals I trust implicitly. I serve on the board of the Massachusetts Elder Justice Coalition, using my experience to educate others about warning signs and protective strategies. Last month, I received a letter from Derek in prison. Unlike the unopened stack I'd received from many victims in similar situations, I chose to read this one. It was 17 pages of regret, apology, and acknowledgement of the harm he'd caused. He asked for nothing. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not financial help. Just wanted me to know he understood what he destroyed and lived with that knowledge every day. I wrote back once, a brief note saying I acknowledged his remorse but that some betrayals permanently sever relationships. I wished him the wisdom to prevent his children from making similar mistakes. I haven't written since and don't plan to. Vanessa has never apologized. She writes to various media outlets claiming she's a victim of a vindictive, wealthy woman who couldn't accept her nephew's marriage. No one publishes her delusions. Linda and I have lunch every Tuesday now at a restaurant overlooking Cape Cod Bay. We talk about cases, about life, about the strange journey that took us from business partners to warriors against elder abuse. You know, Linda said recently, your case changed the entire landscape of guardianship proceedings in Massachusetts. Judges are far more skeptical of emergency petitions now. They require independent evaluations, mandatory representation for the alleged incapacitated person, and thorough vetting of evidence. You've probably saved hundreds of people from similar schemes. That's something, I said. Not enough to erase what happened, but something. The security systems I installed, the digital forensics evidence I collected, the careful documentation of my complete cognitive capacity, these became a model for others facing similar threats. Elder law attorneys across New England now recommend similar protective measures for their clients. At 69 now, I'm living proof that age doesn't equal vulnerability, that technology can be a powerful defensive weapon, and that standing up to family predators is both possible and necessary. I've spoken at legal conferences about my experience. I've met with other victims who faced similar schemes, some who won their cases and others who lost everything. The pain of family betrayal leaves scars that time doesn't fully heal, but there's also resilience. The discovery that strangers, Linda, Detective Walsh, Judge Morrison, Rachel Kim, will fight fiercely for justice when family won't. The knowledge that systems, however imperfect, can work when good people demand accountability. My art collection hangs in my Cape Cod home now, each piece chosen during travels with Tom or acquired during successful business deals. They represent achievement, not just monetary value. Vanessa saw dollar signs. I see memories. The cottage hosts gatherings now for the Elder Justice Coalition, workshops teaching seniors about protective strategies, warning signs, and legal resources. The dining room where Vanessa once calculated square footage now holds strategy sessions for protecting vulnerable people. Last week, a woman in her 70s approached me after a presentation. Her son had started pressuring her to sign power of attorney documents, claiming he could manage things better. The warning signs I'd described matched her situation perfectly. I gave her Linda's number, the names of cognitive specialists who'd evaluated me, and a detailed checklist of protective steps. "You might be saving my life," she said. "Someone saved mine," I replied. "That's how it works. We protect each other. If you're reading this story and seeing echoes of your own situation, please act immediately. Contact an attorney who specializes in elder law. Get independent cognitive evaluations from multiple sources. Install security systems. Document everything. Tell trusted friends and professionals what's happening. If you're a family member caring for an elderly relative, examine your motivations honestly. Are you helping because you care, or because you're anticipating inheritance? Your parents, your aunts and uncles, your grandparents, they're people with dignity, rights, and value beyond their bank accounts. To the legal and medical professionals reading this, scrutinize guardianship petitions. Require actual evaluations. Verify credentials. Ensure alleged incapacitated persons have independent representation. Your diligence can prevent nightmares like mine. My story became a warning, but also a reminder that predators don't always lose, and victims aren't always helpless. Justice requires action, courage, and sometimes a little technological savvy that your opponents underestimate.